everyone. Thanks for joining me for Where I'm From, number 68, with Eileen. I'm Allison. What are you reading? And are you loving it? I am loving this, Inciting Joy by Ross Gay. I'm a big Ross Gay fan. And I'm reading this one, like I'm savoring this one. It is, I love his writing. I appreciate the invitation to contemplate and incite joy because I think this book is great in that it addresses that thing we feel, or the thing I feel, when it's like, oh, but how can I be thinking about joy? I can't take the time to consider or pursue joy that's so frivolous. And look at you, you're here.
I did.
You have succeeded. Check mark. Actually, gold star.
I was starting to think it wasn't going to work because you should see what I have here. It's like my phone is balanced on some books and some other things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's on a little tripod that I got as like a, a door prize somewhere. I think they got it from the dollar store.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm afraid to touch it.
I have done that. When I've been traveling, I have balanced it on a bed frame, the bottom of the bed frame, and I just delicately press it and hope for the best. So
Um,
I have a stand. I have splurged on a stand because I do enough of this that it's worth it. Um, so how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You'll probably hear some hammering in the background because people like to build houses right near me. But other than that, I'm great, and I'm looking forward to hearing your poem. I don't know if you want to chat at all, or you just want to launch into it. It's really up to you.
Well, that was the other thing I was worried about. There's a lot of construction here after the hurricane.
Yes.
I have one bar,
Oh
one
boy.
little,
Hmm.
so I thought I'd go outside, but then, you never know when they're going to start. So yes, I will start. And thank you for inviting me. I think I've
Yes.
watched so many of these and every one of them just touches me. And what a great way to like jump off. It just works so well,
It
I think.
does, right? It's brilliant.
Well, I was away for a week at a conference
Yes.
and with a couple of other writers, and who you probably know,
Hmm.
Casey Mulligan Walsh and Mimi Zeman. And I thought, well, I didn't have time to write this or to look at it before I went. So I thought, well, we'll be sharing a condo and I'll, get them to listen and I'll bounce it off them. Well, we didn't have a spare minute. And I think it's better this way. Like I wrote it a minute before I sent it to you. So, um, okay,
Okay, I'm ready.
where I'm from. I'm from broken glass, cars crashing on a busy street, neighbors running in house coats and curlers to see the carnage, from white bread and Old Bay seasoning. I'm from a little row house, three sisters in one bed. The youngest, I wouldn't have it any other way. Worn flowered linoleum and peeling flowered wallpaper. The smell of Raid and Raleigh's Plain, no filter, and the chalky taste of paint chips I pulled from the windowsill. I'm from a single rose bush in the postage stamp yard, red petals like jewels on the cracked concrete. I'm from Mitch Miller's bouncing ball and a yearly trip to Gwinoak Amusement Park on a city bus, screaming in the funhouse and on the roller coaster. Dad slumped in the seat on the way home, a few beers too many. From Otto and Charlotte, I'm from Don't Talk About That, or that either. From Go Out and Play, or I'll find you something to do, and I'll give you something to cry about. I'm from Jesus Loves the Little Children, to Baruch Atah Adonai. I'm from South Monroe Street, Baltimore, Maryland, and a nameless bombed out Strasse in Hamburg, Germany. Pickled pig's feet in a jar, the stuff of my nightmares, and mayonnaise sandwiches, soft as clouds, from the sweet, handsome uncle back from the war, sometimes locked away, shell shocked, but don't tell anyone about that.
My dog is also barking in appreciation. Um, thank you, Eileen. That was wonderful.
I
There's so
don't know if
much in
that was
there.
your dog or
It was
mine.
mine. She knows that I'm distracted, so it's a really good time to bark. Pickled pig's feet. There's so much in your poem, but it is also the stuff of my nightmares. So that one actually made me laugh out loud because I had some family members who enjoyed those, and I couldn't wrap my head around that.
Yeah. The way they
There's
look in the jar in the
yes,
years later, I had a friend who was studying medical illustration at Hopkins, and he took me into their lab, and there were things in jars that just reminded me of
yeah,
those pig's feet.
yeah. That is. They're so macabre. You know, as you walk by, it's like, oh God, that doesn't seem like food.
No,
Yeah.
it does.
um, and all the things that you were told, those are some greatest hits. I'll give you something to cry about. You know, let's not talk about that or that. A lot of secrets.
Yeah, and but still a lot of fun. You know, I don't complain about my childhood because we had a blast. We were free range children for the most part
For
until the
sure.
street lights came on, and then you better be home.
Mhm.
So those were, it was a different era.
It was definitely. And so was your family from Hamburg?
My
Is that?
father was an immigrant. My mother was from Baltimore,
Hmm.
and I think they met in New York,
Yeah,
where he was an illegal alien, which I didn't realize. Not that there's any such thing as that in my
right,
mind, but
right. Agreed.
yeah, it was kind of a funny thing. The first time I went to Ellis Island, and I was looking, at the rosters and
Hmm.
things, and I called my brother and I said, I can't find Dad's name on any of these things. And he said, he's 10 years older than I. So he said, well, of course you wouldn't find them. He was illegal. He didn't come through those channels. And my brother remembers him getting his, going to a ceremony for his citizenship when my brother was 10. So I was probably just thinking about being born.
Hmm. And so what war was it from, the First World War that was bombed out?
No, probably the second.
Oh,
Well, you know what? My brain isn't working right now anyway. But I just remember, they used the
that's
term
allowed.
shell shock, and
Hmm.
that my uncle was often
Oh
institutionalized.
yes,
That,
no, him. I was talking about your dad. What war he lived through in Germany? I
well,
think your
he,
uncle. I
he
assumed it was World
he
War II.
came as a young man, as Hitler was,
Really?
not in power yet,
Wow.
but probably starting to be scary.
Yeah.
And my father was not Jewish. He was just, a German citizen. But the the street where he grew up was all bombed out, and I have cousins there who told me, what it was like during the war. So war, and here we are again.
Yeah.
It just never seems to end.
No. No, it doesn't. Um, I don't have anything like philosophically genius to say about it, but no, it doesn't. And I was just before you came on talking about what I'm reading right now, which is Ross Gay's Inciting Joy, and I appreciate authors who give us an opportunity to contemplate joy and its importance in our lives because it's so easy to get bogged down in what is not joyful because
Yeah.
here it is. What was your experience writing the poem? You touched on it right before you started reading it, but did you
Oh,
enjoy it?
for writing
Mm-hmm.
it, for writing the poem, like I said, I went back and I watched a bunch of others that you've recorded, and every one of them had, like you said, those greatest hits, things that we all remember. Even people far younger, have things that I remember saying to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a great way to start a conversation.
It is.
Yeah.
And I've said here many times, we don't generally talk about our childhoods in social conversation. conversation, other than maybe to mention, oh, it was like this generally, but not that you peeled paint off the walls and ate the paint chips, which
Think how
which was probably, was it
brilliant
lead
I
paint,
could be.
Eileen?
I just think how brilliant I could be if I hadn't eaten all that lead paint.
Yeah, I think I ate sand. It was my I love crunchy things. Still love crunchy things. Didn't really care that it was sand. That seemed beside the point.
That's an interesting thing there, the whole pica, what people eat and why. And I just like peeling it off. And, what else do you do with it? You put it in your mouth and savor every bite. Which, nowadays, they've done a wonderful job with lead abatement,
Yes.
in housing. So you don't find it anymore. I look for it everywhere. I can't find it.
Well, it's like
I just,
asbestos. It used to be, oh, you look for it because you want to eat it. I get it. I get the joke. I was thinking you look for it because I looked for asbestos because I grew up, my father was involved in some legal dealings with asbestos. So it was something I was very aware of. And so I always was looking for it. You used
yeah,
to be able to find it, not so much anymore, which is a wonderful thing. You're not complaining. Um, did you write one draft and you just went with it? That
say
was
that.
did you write one draft of the poem and just send it to me? Was that your?
Yeah, I think I wrote a draft when I first got it.
Mhm.
And then, it's here somewhere in my hovel, and I went to look for it, and I thought, well, I better just start over because, like, that was 3 weeks ago, and I'm a new me now. Because, yeah,
That's true. And
yeah.
were you surprised at all by what you came up with, or were you like, oh yeah, this is kind of what I thought it
No,
would be
I
like?
was surprised. And that opening line about the car crashes, we lived
Yeah.
on the street that had the highest incidence of automobile accidents in Baltimore because it became one way. So we had these narrow sidewalks and then the row houses, and at least once a week we had a crash. And that's what people did. They, like, if you heard the crash at night, people would run out of their homes with curlers and their moo and push and shove to get a front row view. And as a child, like, my mother never let us do that. But if we were already outside and it happened, we were in that crowd, pushing to see. And so I remember one day when we had a neighbor on the corner whose steps would always get, wooden steps, and they were always getting a car in them. And I was, just quite small and pushed my way to the front. And I saw a woman on a stretcher who said, and I will never forget her words, she said, "They're like animals, get them away from me." And it suddenly clicked in my little child mind that this is not recreation, you know. And so to this day, and the funny thing, I just had an appointment this morning, and as I was driving, I saw one of the worst accidents I've ever seen. Not that I wanted to have that be this conversation, but I try never to look. And when you're on the other side and traffic slows down because people are filming and looking, if I were first on the scene, of course I would stop. But once the EMTs are there and people are there, I just try to keep going and not do that gawking thing that we all do, because it is such a horrendous thing. So I think, that had a big impact on me. And I hate cars. And I used to put my religion, when I was in graduate school. It was a Catholic university. And people would ask, and I would put my religion as pedestrian because I just hated cars so much.
I can imagine that would be formative because I've only seen a few, and I can't imagine having the regularity of the accidents. I mean, I had assumed it was just like once that, popped into your mind, but um,
Yeah.
because it's very evocative, the house dresses and the curlers and the, um, I think that's a bygone thing. We hang out in sweatpants and, do whatever. Like we don't have like the wear for like the robe with the thing. I don't have that where I feel like most women did. They had the coat and the slippers, and like this was the outfit they wore when they were doing their before bed routine.
Yeah. And once they're settled
Yeah.
in for the night.
Yeah. Or I'm just wearing sweats, no big difference. Um, I think pedestrian's a great religion. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah.
Good.
And you get to see a lot more.
Yeah.
You see a lot more. I actually met someone in the moors of somewhere in walking who would not take a ride. He was called himself a walker, so that he just walked forever. And we actually had a head-on accident in Ireland once. And no one was injured, but the rental car was pretty totaled. And no one would rent us a car again. That's pretty much the way it works. You screw up once, you're not getting another chance. And it made the trip so much better because we would go, hire someone to ferry us from one place to the next in our luggage, and we would do a lot of walking. So it turned out being a great trip. Not that I'm happy that we had the accident, but so
I love when I go to a new place to walk around. That's something we do as a family too. So we don't get as much accomplished. We don't like check off as many things, but I feel like there's this, like you soak it in a different way, and you feel like you experienced it. And I feel so grateful that we all enjoy that. That there's not one of us who's like, okay, when are we going to the seventh place on our list? Because I have traveled with people like that, who are like, I'm going to be here once. I have to see the top 20 things. And it's just like, oh God.
yeah,
No.
it's a lot of work. It becomes work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a headache and I just want to lay down and like have a snack. I don't want to, I don't want to, yeah. I'm trying to disengage is like I'm trying to re-examine the whole notion of accomplishment. Like, what does it mean, and why do I care? Like,
Yes, because we can always watch it on a documentary if we miss something.
there are many wonderful documentaries. That is very true, and their pictures are much better than the ones I can take with my phone. You have that moment of like, oh, I can't capture this at all. Like, I just got to breathe this in. There's no saving it for later. And I grew up with an uncle who gave like interminable slideshows, like, let's sit down for Carol number 1 of the slideshow. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And the pictures were amazing. He was very accomplished. He had great equipment and all that. No people in them, just places. And I was, 5. I don't care. But the reality is no one does.
Yeah, and we're going through that right now, my husband and I, in our house, and we both came with boxes and boxes of photographs. Many are duplicates, and for his, many are scenes with no people. And so he's calling them. I'm calling mine, because if we ever move again, that's books and photographs are the biggest thing that we have to move. And speaking of books, I'm reading this. I'm reading
Please tell me what you're reading.
The Art of Misdiagnosis,
Okay.
which is a 2017 memoir by Gail Brandeis, who has a new book coming out. And
Yes.
this is the beauty of social media, that I'm writing about my daughter's suicide, and Gail wrote about her mother's suicide in this. So you don't, on a casual conversation, you don't meet people who are writing about suicide. So I sort of met Gail online, and I'm reading this book, and it is just fabulous. And so that connection, I would tell you, I was not on social media until the pandemic hit. I think I had, the grandmotherly Facebook page where I call it, and I have no grandchildren, but I call it parental espionage. So, sort of keep an eye on my adult son to see what he's up to, and lie low.
Yeah,
When the pandemic hit, I just got on Twitter and Instagram and whoever knows what else they are. And I've met all these people that I've met in real life and connected with so many writers, and it's just been really wonderful.
I agree.
And
It's
you,
very different. Thank you. And it's been different than and I was on social media when I was younger, and then I got off because I couldn't handle the dissonance. I had a really difficult time with people I knew in real life and their other lives, and I was like, but it's so fake. I was raging against the fakeness. And then I let that go and I got back on and was able to just be here for what is positive instead of spending my energy, you know, being frustrated with the construct. It was misplaced, but it's a much more gratifying experience to be here for what is positive. And because there is a lot of positives for me as well.
yes,
Um,
there is. I made the mistake of following a person on Twitter. I don't know that I even follow him, but I can't not watch these videos of Trump Jr. when he comes
oh
on.
no.
And
Oh no.
he'll be on there and he's doing the most bizarre things. And so I watch them. And then because I watch them, I guess the algorithm
Feeds them to you.
keeps bringing me
Mm-hmm.
him. I keep getting him
Mm-hmm.
and all those other like
And
Marjorie.
if you like him, you'll like this.
I know.
That's the
And
danger.
it's fascinating because it's almost like science fiction or some bizarre
I
thing.
wish it
And
was.
I want them to go away. Just can't stop watching them.
Mm-hmm.
And because they would be really funny if
If they
they
weren't taking away people's rights.
if they weren't real, they would be
Mm-hmm.
really funny, if they were like
Yeah.
some kind of parody.
Right. Agreed. But then you see the real world consequences, and they're horrifying, and it
It
takes
is horrifying.
takes
And
the fun out.
yeah, on my Instagram, I'm not on Instagram that much. I don't post there that much. But this morning, my local paper here in Florida had a big thing about how it, it's a felony, prosecuting teachers with felony prosecution for having books in their classroom that have not been vetted by their new, people that they're training to vet books. And, we're all book people. And so
Yeah,
it's frightening. It's just
it is.
really scary stuff.
And I am certainly a person who, when I see a book is banned, I go read it because I know there's something essential in there that's terrifying someone. So if you're taking away access, you're also taking away, I think, passion for reading, and
Yeah.
that's really and for curiosity and yes, it is about the books themselves, but it's also about the larger message of squashing people's curiosity and wonder. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's horrifying. He's not a great guy. Your governor. Whew. Um, but do you have any last thoughts, or was that your last thought?
No, I just
I
want to
mean,
say keep doing this. I love it. I love watching them. And I appreciate the opportunity to be among those who got to do it. It
thank
was
you for
really,
joining me. I know you had a very hectic week last week, and I'm grateful that you were able to make the space for this. It was a pleasure, and I'm happy to meet you socially in social media and someday in real life. I'm going to go to one of these conferences one day, but they kind of overwhelm me, the notion
yeah.
of them. Someday.
Now, tell me what I have to touch to get out of here.
So I will end it, and I think that'll be it. You will be free.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you, Allison. It's been
Thank you,
fun.
Eileen.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.